how is this a game? It's so weird.
And the thing about them is they're not real either. And AC,
right.
I want to insert this amazing fact, which is I'm going to send you this link. It is a game called Yeah, you want those games, right? So here you go. Now let's see you clear them. And it is literally a full-ass paid-up front video game that is just that bullshit. Like,
oh my
actually
God.
made.
Oh my God.
Yes. It's an incredible idea, and I am jealous of the people that made it.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
And welcome to Can't Let It Go, the show about the things stuck in our heads. My name is Matt, and I use he, him pronouns.
Hey, I'm AC. I use they, them pronouns.
And today, we are going to talk about Marvel Snap, but also just like free-to-play games in general. I'll tell you why in a second, but first, AC literally maybe 10 seconds ago told me that they had a nugget for me, and it was just words that I had never heard in my life.
Okay, so I'm sending you a link.
Okay.
And I want you to open it and watch this video and then come back to me.
Okay.
According to the judgment of the Oratrice Mecanique d'analyse Cardinale, we now turn to the Oratrice Mecanique d'analyse Cardinale. The judgment of the Oratrice Mecanique d'analyse Cardinale.
Okay, so the thing is do you know where the Oratrice Mecanique d'analyse Cardinale comes from?
It's either anime or like
it's anime.
It's anime.
It's Genshin Impact.
Oh,
yeah.
So that's the thing I was gonna say. It's either anime or one of those anime games, which Genshin Impact.
Correct.
I can't believe you brought up Genshin Impact in the episode where we're gonna talk about free-to-play games out of nowhere.
Listen, I don't know what Genshin Impact is. Like, that's part of why this is funny to me is like, this trend is all over my For You page. And I think, Matt, like the reason, one of the reasons it's a nugget for me is like, there is just this thing that has happened to me my whole life, which is that both everyone that I know and also the algorithm thinks that I'm into anime. And I am not into anime. But like the algorithm really thinks that I get anime jokes and I really don't. So I had to look it up. Does the algorithm
just know that you're like non-binary?
Yeah, I mean,
is that like
I think
what it
the
is?
thing is like, yeah, I fit the profile of some. If we would like to do some light stereotyping about people who like anime, gay, non-binary, into art, likes weird stuff, is a Halloween lover,
fandom,
making stuff, sewing, costumes, fashion, freaking people out. I don't know. I mean, pretty much I can list on one hand all of the animes that I've ever watched. And they were all when I was in middle school, because I went to a very small middle school with like 100 kids. And there were like 5 weird art kids. And I was one of those 5 weird art kids. But in the early 2000s, 4 of the 5 weird art kids, so everyone except for me, were weird anime art kids. I was just a weird art kid.
Right.
So
shout out to all the weird anime art kids listening.
I mean,
to the show.
Listen, the weird anime art kids kept me safe. Yeah. Okay. And I love them dearly.
So I've been clicking around this audio in TikTok just to explain what we're even talking about, because you've heard the audio at this point. It's literally people like doing nothing, and then when they say Oratrice Mecanique d'analyse Cardinale,
you got it.
They like dance to the sort of musical tone, right? And I literally was clicking around and immediately saw a Hank Green video.
Yes, there is a Hank Green version. This is like an extremely viral trend on TikTok right now, and it's so weird. I think like it is also like such a funny I watched a good video recently about like how edits are taking over TikTok and how the edits that are taking over TikTok are just like YouTube poop, right? Are just this like version of the way that we chop up and redistribute content, that it comes from the content machine that as it has always existed. Like it's not new or unique to TikTok. It's just a different way of doing it. And I think that these trends like this are so funny. I think the idea of just taking something like this random weird phrase of from Genshin Impact, and like certainly the person who made the edit of putting those three things, like those three times that this is said together, didn't intend for people to be like, I am going to do weird dance moves to this.
Yeah.
But that is what happened.
Are you aware of Core?
No. What does that mean?
It's just a brand of TikTok like edit video. That's like, I'm saying that like being 33 and having been on the internet, right, for a long time.
Sure.
But like teens right now are doing this thing where they edit like random fucking clips. I'm not talking like AMV, I watched anime and I made a music video, right? Like I'm talking like pick an actor, not even one that you like super love, that like did an interview followed by a clip from a TV show and a news clip and then like some stock footage over some emotional music, and the idea is to get across a specific emotion, usually melancholy, nostalgia, like the things that you're like starting to feel for the first time at that age, right? But do it all without really like saying anything directly, right? By just using like clips that feel similar to you, right? And to me, it is like today's AMV, right? It's the same, it's doing the same thing in the way that you were describing. We're like chopping up content and remaking things.
Fascinating. Well, nothing is new. Art is duplication.
Everything's a remix.
And, you know, things at the whatever the audio says, the power of the Oratrice Mecanique d'Analyse Cardinale, we can now begin the episode.
Yeah,
this has been your nugget.
Begin the episode. It's just, it is still so fucking wild. You brought up Genshin Impact right before we started this episode. So shout out to the Earth and all of the people on it.
Yes, very good shout out, Matt.
So
specific, pointed.
Yes, not broad at all. Very intentional. Hey, AC, you texted me that you started playing Marvel Snap this week. How'd that happen?
Well, you talked about Marvel Snap a lot. And one thing about me is that I have what I call vegetable time at night, which is where I, after my partner goes to bed, because my partner goes to bed early, from the hours of usually about 9 p.m. until about 2 a.m., I have something on the television and I play little games on my phone and my brain goes into vegetable mode and I do not exist on this planet. And that's how I cope with the world. And so I play a lot of word games, like a lot of sort of random phone games, the ones you're familiar with, the ones you're not. I play like the endless connections, New York Times connections. I play Cozy Grove on my computer sometimes while I watch TV.
It's a good one.
Cozy Grove's so fun. But mostly it's like I prefer for it to be on my phone because if I'm on my laptop, I fall into the trap of looking at work stuff. And I'm much better about that boundary on my phone. So the other night I was bored and I was out of I kind of run my mental fortitude down with word games. I was like, I need something different. Why don't I try this game that Matt really likes? And that's how I downloaded Marvel Snap.
Nice. How much have you played?
Not that much. I don't know. It feels like a lot to me, but then it's never that much compared to other people.
Can you open it up and look at the green number at the top of the home screen?
That's exactly what I was doing.
It's the collection level number, which we'll have conversations about.
It's like 20 something.
Okay,
so not very much.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think you're like technically not even through a tutorial, I think.
23.
23. Okay. Let me, just to give you an idea, I was playing Marvel Snap right before this just to like get back in the headspace. I'm at collection level 7018.
Oh.
Yeah. This game came out a year ago, and
I didn't know numbers went that high.
Yeah. I played it basically all week, the week of Thanksgiving last year. I didn't have anything better to do. Family wasn't in town. And I just sat at my computer and played Marvel Snap for a week. It was great. That was a real good week, honestly. I had a good time. Marvel Snap is a card game, is what I'll lead with. It's made by the people who made Hearthstone. If you're aware of Hearthstone, which is a card game in the like Warcraft world. So
great.
Yeah. Blizzard, the company that made Warcraft, made StarCraft, all that stuff. They made, this is 2011, I think. We'll look it up and find out. It was 2014 because I remember I was working at Smule shortly after it came out. And Hearthstone plays a lot like Magic the Gathering. This team made that, and then they owned it for a number of years, and a bunch of them went and formed a new company called Second Dinner. And the first game that Second Dinner has released is Marvel Snap. They originally, it's kind of weird how things came together, but they worked on the mechanics first, and it shows, I think. Because the base game of Marvel Snap, Marvel or not, is incredible. It takes everything that I love about card games and simplifies it to a level that people who don't enjoy that kind of thing a lot of the times can get into and at least can understand, even if they decide it's not for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mentioned on a previous episode that deck building games I don't really understand and I don't really get into, and obviously, at level 23, I don't know where I'm going from here. But I think it's really interesting. The thing that really drew us into this specific conversation is when we started talking about Marvel Snap, and you mentioned to me that you were buying upgrades to play Marvel Snap, and I just never even considered that possibility. I know that a lot of the phone games that I play or have played in the past have these monetized elements to them. But I just I never would have thought to do that.
I get it. And also you use the phrase, they have these monetized elements to them. I would say those games would not exist and more if they didn't have them, and more people pay for them than you think and then would admit it. I actually want to spend a good chunk of this episode talking about games monetization and free-to-play games and whatnot. But I want to start off by saying, this is a stupidly good game, and I have mostly positive feelings about it, despite the fact that I'm about to critique this business model and all of that, and have plenty of ideas on how it can be made better and how stuff like this could be made better. And also, even the monetization of these kinds of games, I don't want to walk through. I don't have all negative feelings about it. I think when people are getting paid to make the things that they, that they made, that's value being exchanged. We can talk about capitalism and commerce and all that stuff, and I plan on it, in fact. But I think generally this idea that people making games are trying to find ways to make a living is cool. I want to say Marvel Snap is very clearly Disney, right? Making money. I'm not super concerned about this particular game. I'm more thinking about indie creators and whatnot.
Yeah.
But Marvel Snap for me has been a journey. I started when it opened up on basically 1.0. There was a really long beta that I was not a part of. But when 1.0 launched, I had just heard enough from people playing betas, specifically Brendan on Into the Aether had talked about it a lot. And there was a group in the TWG Discord that started playing it and was really into it. And like I said, I had a really great time this first few months. But the thing that happened for me was I have never been an online competitive multiplayer guy. It's just not something that's interesting to me. A lot of it is hyper competitive, and I don't get into games to be competitive, right? I get into games to enjoy them. And sure, I want to be good, but I'm not trying to compete for rank or anything like that. I've played a bit of Overwatch, also a Blizzard game, and I've never touched Well, that's not true. I have played maybe 3 ranked rounds, and I was like, I hate this. I just want to enjoy the game. And in fact, don't play a lot of that game because I find the casual play to be a little too sweaty for me.
Yeah.
But Marvel Snap, I got to a place where I was pretty good at it and was climbing the like actual ranked ladder because it only has a ranked mode. There is not a way to play casual unless you like have a friend that you're like, hi, do you want to play in like the real world or on an instant message or something?
Sure.
Right? There's friendly battles, but you have to like be planning to sit down and play with someone to do that. But there's only ranked mode in Marvel Snap. And since I was climbing and doing well, I was like, oh, maybe I'll be intentional about this. But that led to some really negative things, which was like me. I said this to you in our text. I said, I was starting to experience tilt like poker players do. The thing about Marvel Snap is while I love the card gameplay mechanics, and I'm obviously a big Marvel fan, there's this sort of betting mechanic where if you think you're going to win the game, maybe you're on turn 4 out of 6 or something like that, you can snap. And that there's this like cube at the top. It's supposed to be the Tesseract, right? From Avengers. And
then you gleam the cube. And sorry, that's a different joke. That's a different thing.
But it'll basically double the value of cubes that you get at the end of a game, and cubes is how you progress in rank. You could play this whole thing and never interact with the cube at all and just never snap, and you'd probably have a good time. But the issue is when you start getting attached to the rank, it's also like there's some fun in like bluffing there's fun in being confident and hitting snap. Like there's times when I'm like in the middle of a Magic the Gathering like IRL game and I'm like, man, I wish I could like double down on like this play right now because I'm gonna do fucking great.
Yeah.
But you're betting on your win, and I don't know, if you double up and then the other person doubles up, you're now at 8 cubes, and if you lose 8 cubes, that's now currently the way the game works, that's more than 1 rank. Right. And they've worked on that balance over time. But like, I think they've actually gotten to where it's pretty good. Because if you win 8, right, you can jump from, I don't know, say rank 57 to 59, right? Which is a cool thing. That's neat that you can do that.
Yeah.
But you can also get to a place where you're like, hey, I'm winning a lot. I'm feeling really confident. And overconfidence can really screw you up. And a lack of confidence can do the same. And all I'm doing is describing poker tilt, where people just like lose all their winnings, right?
Sure.
That is one way in which this game feels like gambling, right?
Yeah.
In this case, it's not with real money. In this case, it's really just with your mental health. And I had to take a long break from the game because of that, where I was like really only opening it up like the last day of the season. We'll talk about seasons. They're about 4 or 5 weeks, and I was opening up like the last day just to like play enough to get all the season benefits and then let it move on. And that was honestly some of the most fun that I've ever had playing the game, because at that point I'm like, there's no way I'm climbing to infinite today. There's zero stakes here, right?
Yeah.
And in some ways that was the best I ever played because I didn't have any of the pressure, right?
Yeah.
Snap, I just said the word infinite. It has these sort of you can rank up like levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 10. When you get out of 10, you're out of the tutorial basically. At the end of a season, your rank will drop by 30, but it'll never go below 10. And these days, most seasons, I'm up to 80. Shout out to the crew of what we've been calling the Infinauts, the people who never hit infinite, which is level 100, on the TWG Discord. I've got to really get good at saying that because but Infinaut is a card in the game, a character in Marvel, and we've taken to calling the folks who have never hit infinite and will most likely not, and just kind of are enjoying the game. We've been Callisto X in the TWG Discord came up with that, and it's been like a nice way, frankly, for me to be like, hey, this is a cool way to experience the game, and like I don't have to worry about the status of getting up to rank. And frankly, feeling like this is why I don't play ranked games, right? In general, but like I don't have the option in Marvel Snap.
Again, I so much of like when I am playing these kinds of games versus like the other video games that we've talked about, like that I've got into over the years, like the biggest difference is that I am not playing them to do something. I'm playing them to like fill time and occupy my brain. And there's a lot of different ways that I have done this over the years. I, do a lot of like crocheting or sewing or crafting or reading, or like, it just depends on what my hobby of the moment is. And when all of those kinds of things are too much, it's phone games for me. And so like, when we were first talking about Snap and you were like, oh, I don't like that there's no casual mode, I was like, what does that? I only play it casually. What does casual mode mean? And like, I understand that there is this like very real since I started playing, I actually now have noticed, on the train, people playing Snap on their phones, right? Like I've actually seen it more now that I like know what it looks like, right? Or like have it in my brain to look for, noticing it in places that I don't think I would have noticed it before. So it's just very interesting to me because like even the same with like that poker tilt, I just am not. I am competitive in such narrow situations. Like I am not, as a rule, I am not a competitive person because I prefer like the kind of like joy and like the feelings that you get out of like collaboration more than competition. So I'm often looking for either single player games or like collaborative games. And so like last night for the first time I played the game Medium, which is like it's like the card game version of that like TikTok trend where you're like, okay, we're gonna think of the same word, 3, 2, 1. We each say a word and then we're trying to get to the same word. So it's just a card game version of that game, and it was very fun. But like the thing that I like is that you're like, you are competing against each other, but you're working together to get to the answer, right? And so I just don't like. You're going to tell me all of this. I'm going to learn all about Marvel Snap and all about how rankings work and, betting and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm just going to go, okay. And I'm not going to do any of it.
I actually feel very similar to you. I think that ranking in games hits on some of my personal worst tendencies, which is to feel like I have to be good at everything, and feel really negatively when I'm not good at things. And the thing is, I am pretty good at this game. The thing I'm not good at is the anxiety of not being good enough. Like we're down in like, we're down in, actually, I have talked to my therapist about this game multiple times. Okay. Like that's where we're at. And, that's the reason I don't get to Infinite. It's not because I'm not good at the game. It's because I psych myself out because I feel like I have to be good at the game. And that is rough. I wish that there was a casual mode, frankly. I've talked about both of these things like really deeply on the YouTube channel, by the way. I did a video recently called Broken Games Are Good, actually, which is me ranting about how like multiplayer online games prefer to balance the game for a quote good experience to people, but really feeling overpowered is the thing I go to these games for. And I also did one a year ago called Marvel Snap is So Frustrating, which was me kind of sharing the things that I just did. Yeah. The thing I picked up in our conversation was the thing you said earlier, which is that like it just doesn't go through your brain to like even put money into these things.
No. And I'm not saying this to be like I'm holier than thou. I'm not spending my money irresponsibly. Not that I think that investing in your hobbies is irresponsible either, right? Like I think that there is like a certain amount of stigma, right, around like spending money on games on your phone because of like, especially in our generation, it feels like, because like of like the evolution of Candy Crush around and like the way that Candy Crush got monetized is the thing that I always think of. Or like Farmville. Yep. Do you remember Farmville?
Farmville, I consider a historic moment in this.
Correct. And so, I mean, I think that like, I don't think it's embarrassing to spend money on phone games. I don't think it's embarrassing to invest in your hobbies, period, right? But it's just not the place that I think to spend my money. Yeah. And like, and I think that like there's something to be said for even spending my money on like video games, larger games, right? For right? We could be specific. I know the specific terms. Console games. Right. Look at me learning terminology. Right. Spending my money on console games is new to me. So it's just not something that I ever entered my mind.
That's fair. I think this is a great segue into talking about the App Store.
Ooh, tell me about it.
I want to call it, this is going to be very US focused, but I don't think that talking about mobile games from the perspective of iOS and the US is demonstrably different than talking about it in regards to Android, especially Android and the ways experienced in other countries. So let's talk about the ways that you can buy software on an iPhone. Okay? You can do paid up front. I'm going to ask you to just rhetorically think about the last time that you paid for an app in the App Store. It was probably a while ago, or it happens once every few years.
I paid for Lightroom recently.
Okay, but Lightroom is a subscription, but you downloaded it in the App Store for free.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is, you see the price in the App Store and you pay for it before you ever open the app. It probably has not happened in a long time, right? Most apps that you download are priced free, and then they have in-app purchases, right? And that is because it was quickly discovered when the App Store launched that people are far more likely to use your software if it is free to download, right? This is also why apps that are paid on the App Store are very cheap. Often, like, 10th of what they would cost on the desktop, even if they're just as capable, right? If there's going to be any message of this episode, it's going to be, there's a lot of shit going on, but you should pay for software. But because of this phenomenon that people want to get, these apps for free, I get it. People want to use a thing before they want to pay for it.
Sure.
It makes complete sense. A free trial is a common thing, even off of phones, right? And we've got the model for paying for software that existed for a long time before iPhones and Android phones on the App Store was paid upgrades, right? So you might buy something up front or do a free trial, and then they would get to like a 2.0, they'd do a bunch of like little minor releases and they get to 2.0 and they'd be like, hey, this is my app 2, and you're going to have to buy it again. Maybe there's a smaller fee for people that had it before. That's just not a model that, frankly, Apple or Google ever enabled.
Right.
The Play Store and the App Store. They just didn't let it happen. And for a while there, people were doing it by like, I'm releasing a separate app called My App 2.
Interesting.
And you're going to have to buy it again if you want to keep using it. The one you used before will keep working. And that was how they did it. They did this back in the day with like, there was a period when the iPad was kind of new that they would release apps and they would have HD at the end. That was how you knew it was an iPad app. It was silly. But like, it's a common pattern that's happened over time. It's just not been enabled on mobile devices at all.
Interesting.
What happened was instead we got in-app purchases. And I don't have to tell you, like, you guys have lived in the world. You know exactly all the kinds of in-app purchases that you can make.
Yeah.
You can do full unlocks right up front, right? So if somebody gives you like a lifetime purchase right when you open up the app, that's basically a full unlock. Some apps only work that way, right?
Right.
There's feature-based unlock. I used a Magic the Gathering collection tracking app that has like certain features that I had to pay $2.99 to unlock one time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We all know about subscriptions. We all hate subscriptions. They're like an inevitability, but they exist because of the things I just told you. Like the economics of the App Store led us to subscriptions, right? I'm sure that like subscriptions existed before. I'm sure that they would have naturally evolved without the sort of mobile revolution and App Store and Play Store. But like the reason they are so prominent is because of App Store and Play Store.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have one-off purchases. Given Marvel Snap example, you can just straight up buy a bundle of a bunch of different in-game things for way too much money. There's currently one selling for $65 in there, which we will talk about.
That's a lot.
You said you don't pay for things in games and that it doesn't come up for you. Is there like software that you spent money on? You said Lightroom, like what's something, or that maybe you regularly spend money on?
So I think that this is a tough question to answer because most of the software that I would normally spend money on, I have access to both personal use and work use through my job. But in the past, I've paid for any number of like Adobe products or other like creative software But I mean, I pretty much am the type of person who primarily works on their computer and not much else.
Yeah.
I don't play a lot of computer games. In the past, I have like done some of that, but I guess like games aren't software in the same way.
Yeah, I'll conflate them for this episode.
Yeah,
for the purpose of this episode, I think
for the purpose of the point.
Yeah.
So like Cozy Grove, right? I bought through the App Store.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, I think it has primarily been like photo editing or like digital illustration apps. I guess maybe Procreate would be a good example of an app that I have purchased in the App Store.
Good app.
Great. Yeah. I mean, and that was probably about like 6 months ago. And that is more like you're buying like the whole thing up front.
Yeah. In fact, I think that's one that has the price in the App Store. Like, I don't think that you buy it through an in-app purchase.
Right. And then you can buy like brushes and packs and things like that, but those come from individual vendors and not from like it doesn't have in-app purchases.
Yeah.
In the same way.
Okay. Makes sense.
So like there's certain brushes that are and settings that are preloaded, and then you can buy bundles from people to do same thing with Lightroom, right? You can buy bundles from people
like
presets. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that too. I actually pay for this service called SetApp. It is a subscription, but it like has a bunch of really great Mac apps that just like make using my Mac a lot easier. That's a subscription that I have. I don't know. I've bought Procreate. I actually use the Affinity stuff and have for a long time, and bought those up front. But also, I do spend money on games. Bought up front if that's the thing that game does. But I've spent a decent amount of money on Marvel Snap.
Yeah.
I want to talk about like how we got here, not just from the App Store, but from like games purchases specifically.
Interesting.
So games, like if we want to look at the like, I feel like the true history of in-app purchases in games, or microtransactions is the word that gets used when you're talking about games specifically. We need to go back to arcades.
Okay.
Which were literally putting in quarters into physical machines until you lost the lives that gave you.
Yeah, to play a turn of the game.
Yeah, and then you come back when you put another quarter in, right? This is where literally the concept of lives in video games basically comes from, was a way to get more quarters, right?
Yeah.
And that was something, that's really only recently, like last 10 years, really exited video games, right?
Yeah.
In some cases, you'll still run into it. I mean, hell, Super Mario Wonder just came out and still has lives, but they kind of don't matter.
Yeah, and even in games that have lives, it's like, oh, it just sends you back to like your last save point, right? It's not like it's not the same as in an arcade where like you don't have a save point.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first time that you're like really paying sort of as you play. You're paying for time there, and we'll see paying for time come back in a certain way. But then comes buying games, right? Consoles, PC games, but this comes buying up front. This is in large part still the way most people interact with buying, paying for video games. This is most of the way that I interact with paying for video games. And I will say recently has become tainted by some of the other business models by being paired with them, which is never fun.
Yeah.
This one, I even hesitate to call a thing, but I do want to call it out because it's important to compare to the things that come after, which is just sequels, right? Like we're back to like Dickens with this, or even like ancient times, right?
We're back to nothing is original. Yeah. Everything is recycled.
Yeah. The concept of sequels was lost and brought back at some point. Like I see sequels mostly as teams to take another chance at a game, right? If we're just in the game world. But they frankly are also another chance for the business, whatever size that business might be, to make more money, right?
Yeah.
But the thing about sequels is that sequels are a lot of effort. They're very risky from a business standpoint. And when you have people that are happy with your game, another way you can get a little bit another news hit or to make a little bit more money from that game is to release DLC, downloadable content. And this is a thing that is like really, I'm not going to say it's like totally invented in the last 15 years, but in terms of like mainstream, it's been pretty new in the last 15 years or so.
Yeah.
DLC is not always paid. Sometimes it is free. And when people say the word or like the term DLC, often what they're talking about is a bigger chunk of things. It might be like in Mass Effect, it was like a big new mission, right, with some story content.
Yeah.
In another game, it might be a whole new set of maps, right, or a set of new characters. In trading card games like Marvel Snap that are more single player, it can be like a full set of cards that you now have access to.
In Animal Crossing, it's an entire different segment of the game where you make villagers vacation homes.
Yeah, exactly.
I've played that DLC.
I love it. It's so nice. You might hear this called expansions, and I don't need to get into the nitty gritty of the difference of those, but I will say the word expansions is typically relegated to the massively multiplayer online MMO space.
Interesting.
I personally see expansion in that world almost as big as sequel, because those are games that are more living, ongoing. World of Warcraft,
right?
That kind of thing. Again, we're talking about Blizzard. Didn't expect Blizzard to come up so much.
That's so interesting because like my context for expansion is like I'm thinking about like expansion packs, like Magic the Gathering, right? Like literally buying like the expansion packs of like cards or other like large format tabletop role playing games like Warhammer, right, or something like that, where you're buying additional material to expand like your physical game.
Yeah. Totally. And that's definitely the model this is borrowing from, for sure. I just think when it comes to games culturally, expansion seems to be tied more to those living, ongoing games.
Sure.
Where making a true sequel would be bad for everyone involved, the people making it and also the people playing it, right? People that are expecting to spend a lot of time in this game. I mean, there's a reason that World of Warcraft has never done a sequel, right?
Sure.
And then we get to, in terms of like history of paying for games, we come to microtransactions. A lot of time when you talk about the first microtransaction, it's not actually the first, but in the sort of mainstream consciousness it is, you'll hear horse armor referred to. And what this is referring to is a quote unquote DLC in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion.
Oh my God. OG.
Yeah. Where they launched a cosmetic horse armor that was $2.50. And the internet went fucking crazy. People were pissed about a $2.50 horse armor because it just wasn't worth the cost.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I want to remind you, I just talked about a $65 bundle in Marvel Snap that is currently in the shop. And what that gets you is one ticket to play in the ultra competitive mode, because there is another mode, it's just more competitive. It gets you a cosmetic from an artist I really love, but I'm not paying $65 for a JPEG. And some other progression stuff that's not a ton, but then basically enough what's called collector's tokens to get another single card in the game. So a cosmetic and another card is really what I see here. That's what you're getting for $65 in games now, where a $70 brand new single player game,
right,
Spider-Man 2 that I just finished, that's what that cost for me.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So we've definitely come a long way from $2.50 horse armor. Other microtransactions, you might be paying for in-game currencies. You may have heard the phrase loot boxes. There's been lots of talk about loot boxes at, like in various governments. Yeah. Because it's essentially a gambling mechanic. If you don't know what a loot box is, think of, we were just talking about Magic the Gathering, opening a pack of cards. That's a loot box. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're mechanically going to get the things you're looking for. And you don't know if you're going to monetarily, financially get the things that you might be interested in. I just went and did a pre-release of the new Magic the Gathering set on Friday night. And I'm not opening packs for financial returns in that case. I'm doing limited play, in which is you build a deck with the stuff you open. I didn't get good packs mechanically. I had a great time. I spent the $30 knowing what I was getting into. Sure. But I also don't buy packs just to buy packs, right? Like I'm not interested in the loot box mechanics.
Collector in that sense,
right? If I'm going to collect something, I'm going to go buy the single card, even if it seems outrageously priced. Yeah. Because
this is so interesting. Because sorry, go ahead.
I would say that's a better option, and in the real world, that's available to me, and it's often not in these games.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting to me is like my context for government regulation around like loot boxes and these in-app purchases comes from like, all of the now safeguards so that kids can't buy just endless loot boxes on their parents' devices with their parents' cards or on, a kid's account of whatever phone they have, that kind of stuff. That has to be connected to the App Store to be able to download anything. And this is actually goes all the way back to we have a whole there's a whole thing I've been had dealt with at work before where it's you can't have a device for work that's 100% separate from your personal Apple ID because you only have one Apple ID. And so anyway, it's the whole centralization and capitalism of it all. Right. But the context that I have about this level of microtransaction monetization is from the my kid spent $1,000 on a game on my phone and I can't get that money back.
Right. The other thing that you often hear in those conversations is around the addiction of gambling, right?
Yeah.
And introducing that to kids.
Yeah.
Specifically. I think it's bad for everyone, but I think kids is an easy way to get something talked about
for sure.
In the government. and
also it's a good example because it's people who literally children literally aren't able to conceptualize money, right? I did not know what $20 was when I was a child. No, absolutely not. No. And do I know what $20 is today? Also no. Right?
It's not much today.
But I do have a stronger sense of actually, wait, Matt, this is a perfect opportunity. We're going to have to take a quick sidebar here.
Okay.
To talk about AC's favorite Onion article,
Oh.
Which is my favorite Onion article was published in 2010. It is the entire U.S. economy shuts down as everyone realizes money is just a shared illusion, a mutually understood, symbolic shared illusion. And the piece includes Ben Bernanke, who is finance chair, whatever, doesn't matter. Having a meltdown, the president having a meltdown, this stock trader being a fake quote being all day I buy and sell and buy and sell, and for what does any of it really mean? I'm going home to kiss my wife. And it's that's how I feel when I think about how it must be to be a kid, right? You don't know what this means, but it's also for people who struggle with gambling addiction or even just overspending, right? Impulsive spending as a whole, right? Because there's a whole subset of people out there. And I think that it's becoming more common knowledge, or the more people are talking about and trying to destigmatize the relationships between neurodivergence and addictive behavior and that obsessive compulsive disorder or ADHD can impact your financial habits and your financial spending because of how your brain thinks about and conceptualizes that money as real or not real in the screen of your phone.
How dare you at the same time point out the exact reason I'm going to the doctor next week and also say the phrase real or not real and flash me back to the end of the Hunger Games books.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am the boy with the bread, as always.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're spot on. I don't know if you're aware of the phrase whale in referring to who spends money on these things. Have you heard that term before?
I mean, I know what a whale is in gambling context.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's the idea here is that a lot of the people the majority of these games are kept afloat by people that spend the most. Right?
Yeah.
The majority of these games are kept afloat by people who spend tens of thousands of dollars.
Your high rollers.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And there's been a newer, it's not really new, but a different term kind of brought up because of that called dolphins, which are people that spend a good amount of money but are not going over the top. I would call myself a Marvel Snap dolphin, right? I put multiple games of money into this game, but I'm not concerned about what I'm spending, right? I feel in control of it and know when to pull away, right? I do think it's acting on some of my, tendencies as a person with a particular neurodivergence, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of my issues with the game. Back to talking about like what people are spending money on.
Yeah.
These days, you're mostly paying in games for cosmetics. And you might remember the sort of origin of people's hate was like cosmetic horse armor.
Yeah.
But these days, paying for cosmetics is seen as like the good way, because the other way that you pay for things in games is called pay to win. Where you're in some way paying for an advantage, right?
Mm-hmm,
Sometimes that advantage is direct, right? Where like I'm paying for an upgrade to the damage my bullets do in the shooter.
Right.
But people hate that so much. It's like barely a thing anymore. What happens more in pay to win is frankly something Marvel Snap engages in a little bit. Whereas like there's like an advantage of at the lowest end, like this cosmetic has this aspect about it that makes it easier to not be seen or something like that, right? Or in Marvel Snap, you have, if you spend more money, it's easier to get cards faster. Right? Because you can go up the collection level, which, you know, gets you cards there. Or in the shop, you now have more currency to buy those things. Even if technically everyone has the same opportunity to buy those things or to gain collection level, you have it faster. And people have been calling it pay to progress. It's just pay to win through, you know. And the ways that it's not pay to win, to shout out to my Marvel Snap people who love this game, the ways that it's not is that some cards are flops. Not every card is equally good, right? But when something drops into those like later tiers of the game and is very clearly good, you're not going to have the opportunity to get it. Right? You're going to have like far less than 1% chance of getting it in each progressive like cache that you open, which are free, than the person that's spending $400 a month on this game. Right?
Interesting.
To quickly, because we're going to get into free to play and a little bit of behavioral design, to explain to folks who haven't played Marvel Snap, we shared our collection levels earlier.
Yeah.
And the way this game works is that as you play it, you go up the collection level. And at certain places in the collection level, you'll get a new card.
Right.
Or you'll get a new cosmetic. Or you'll get some in-game currency or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can theoretically completely free to play this game. I actually have a free to play Marvel Snap account that I don't spend money on. That like whenever I'm just like, I want to play the game, but I don't want to like worry myself anymore. I just like, I'm going to go to this account. It's a really easy way for me to like still enjoy it and like detach. Right. But the thing about that collection level is that the further you get along that path, the less often you are getting those benefits.
Right.
And then as you get into like really the upper tiers where I am, it's not just the less often you're getting those benefits. It's like the benefits are lesser, and also the cards themselves become farther and farther and farther apart.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed is that you can't use the in-app currency that you earn by like playing and winning to buy cards in the game, at least
Correct.
not from what I saw. Like you can use it to buy other power-ups or like do upgrades and things like that, but the currency that you win in the game doesn't get you access to other parts of the game, it seems like.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the right way to phrase it, but you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So once you get to the stage where there's no built-in cards on the collection level, they start giving you this extra currency called collector's tokens, which you can then use to buy cards.
Interesting.
There's also ways to get gold on the collection track, which you can use to buy bundles, which can give you collector's token. It's so convoluted, and there's 17 different currencies because that's the way these games work. That's the way free-to-play games work, to get you to spend money and to get you to spend more time in the game. But
either you can play this game and do all of these annoying little tasks for 3 weeks until you can have this thing, or you can give me $20 right now and I'll give it to you.
Yeah. And in my case, I'm at the stage where like the length I would have to play to get enough collector's tokens for a card is multiple months. And
oh my God.
I can also just go spend
That's
$65
crazy.
and get a single card right now. $65 fucking dollars for a card.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So let's talk about free-to-play games. So this is, to me, the theoretical end state of microtransactions, and I'll tell you why it's theoretical, because it ended up not being. Free-to-play games like to do a few things. They like to do battle passes. This was popularized by Fortnite, and a battle pass is a separate sort of progress track. Often there's a free tier and a paid tier where like you reach a certain level of that battle pass for the season, right? and you get a reward. And if you're on the paid track as well, you get that reward as well. Marvel Snap has a season pass, they call it, and you can go through different levels. It's basically just, it's pure experience based. It's about how much you play and if you hit like certain like challenges, right? Like I used a 5 power card 4 times or something like that. And if you don't pay, there's like 15 things on that 50 level track you can get, right? Whereas if you pay, you get the season's like new season pass card. This season pass, it's Miss Marvel. What's that?
Did you see the little thumbs up emoji pop up just happen?
Oh, did it happen?
It happened.
I've never gotten it to work. Oh my God, this happened on the end of the Aether.
It was just like a bloop, thumbs up.
Hold on, I'm trying to make it happen again. I know that it does it not work? It's supposed to do this one. There it goes. Made hearts.
That's so silly. I am obsessed. Wait, can I do it? I don't know how.
If you're on the latest Mac OS, it should work.
Oh, I don't know if I don't tell my IT person that I don't think I've upgraded my computer this week.
So you get the season pass card. There it goes. I saw it.
Oh my God. Perfect.
And, you know, at the end of that track, you can get the sort of, there's like a custom variant, an art variant of it.
Yeah.
So I want to say the art variants in this game rule. Like,
yeah, they're beautiful.
They're gorgeous. They're what got me into comics art. They're why I have like 2 comics on my wall behind me that are from the game and original like illustration from Dan Hipp of the blue Marvel card he made for the game, right? Like, yeah. Like I spent good money on that, right? Because I love this game so much and because I love the art of comics so much. And I actually do, I joked earlier, it's paying X amount of money for a JPEG, right?
Sure.
In this game,
it's an NFT.
In a way. It's an NFT in a way, without any of the purported ownership bullshit.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
But I say I actually find value in that personally. They give a lot of them to you for free in various ways, and they give you enough free gold that you can buy one every once in a while out of the shop, right? For no real money. And I have spent money on certain ones of them. I literally, AC, I didn't wake up. I opened up the app for 4 months straight at 10 p.m. waiting to get a Hellfire Gala Jubilee in my shop because it just wouldn't happen. It was the only variant I wanted. The day that I opened it, like TWG Marvel Snap discard rejoiced. Like I sure spent the $10 it took to get the gold to get that JPEG.
Interesting.
I am happy with the fact that I spent that money. Yeah. I also own 2 physical comics of that art. One that is, you know, completely empty of any text, and one that's just the original variant cover because I loved it so much. I loved that Jubilee art just so much that I wanted it everywhere I could have it. Yeah. This is, for me, I think it's interesting that that Second Dinner has identified multiple ways that people can be interested in spending money, right? The art stuff really works on me. For other people, having the mechanics of the new card is the thing they want. And I'm not going to say I'm like immune to that either. I definitely like have spent a lot of my like in-game free currency on that, and I'm happy to like get that as a side benefit whenever I pay for something. But most of my money I've spent in this game is for cosmetics.
Interesting.
So another thing that free-to-play games do is they will have you pay for, like, people have been calling it energy, and this is similar, very similar to arcade games, right? Where you would pay for time played. In this case, I play a game called Toon Blast. There's also one out there called Toy Blast, if you're aware. And you have a number. It's really lives, is what it is. Okay. But when you run out, you get more over time. Like they come back one at a time after a certain amount.
Oh, yeah. Sort of like a life in like Kirby.
Yeah. Sort of, but more predatory.
Okay, cool, great.
Yeah, more predatory. Like in this case, like you get 5 lives whenever you open it up, and then if you lose those 5, they come back 1 every hour. But I can spend money and get a bunch of them right now. There's also ways to get some from like a group. So I'm in a group on that game where I can get 5 more just because like we give each other lives. So you and that's nice. That's cool. But I don't spend money on that game because it's just like a little dumb like Match 3 that I play on my phone, right? It just
or like Candy Crush, right? Like you can run out of
exactly.
lives in Candy Crush and then you buy more lives so that you can keep playing.
Candy Crush is the primary example of this, I think.
Okay.
And what this does is it keeps you coming back if you're not the kind of person to play or to pay, but it also keeps you paying if you don't want to wait. So the game wins either way. Either you are coming back, right, the next day, or you're giving them money.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth saying that for these game apps and for every app in the App Store, the goal, I mean, I guess there are some where this isn't true, but primarily the goal of every app is to keep you in the app longer, because the longer you use the app, the more of your attention they have, the more likely that you are to spend money in one way or another, whether that's in-app purchases, whether that's by making, I mean, I guess not spend money, you are making them money one way or the other, right? Like there's something to be said here for like, especially when we're talking about these, phone apps, mobile app games, you are the product. The product is not the game itself, right? You are the product. Whether it's you're watching the ads that they serve you, which are terrible and are for weird games. I mean, I think if I have to watch, I like the times where I get close to paying for something in an app are when I have to watch the apps or the ads for, oh God, like just the like really fucking weird games that get advertised in other games.
Have you seen the one
like,
that's like a kitchen
what will
pantry
you do?
and you have to like pick the ones out and it like turns in circles and shit?
Yeah, or like the one where it's like, this mother and child are freezing to death. What will you do? Light them on fire or save them? And it's like, what the fuck? Like, why is this? How is this a game? It's so weird.
And the thing about them is they're not real either. And AC,
right.
I want to insert this amazing fact, which is I'm going to send you this link. It is a game called Yeah, you want those games, right? So here you go. Now let's see you clear them. And it is literally a full ass paid up front video game that is just that bullshit. Like actually made.
Oh my God.
Yes. It's an incredible idea, and I am jealous of the people that made it.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
I'll put a link in the show notes. Again, it's called Yeah, You Want Those Games, Right? So here you go. Now let's see you clear them.
Incredible. Oh my God. Not the kicking the dog.
I love that, like, the first example is them, like, pulling the... I don't know, like the ropes to like let things fall and whatnot. Because that's the one you always see.
Yeah. Anyway, you're the product, right? Like they want you to spend more time in their apps because, I mean, in one way or another, you're either paying them or they're showing you ads and you're putting money in their pockets.
Yeah. I'll say the good thing about Marvel Snap is it's not advertising based right now. So purely milking me for money and not, just relying on advertisers. I will say that complete free-to-play monetization are like, especially on mobile, the dominant thing right now. But even on like PC, like League of Legends is huge and has been huge for a long time. And it's a free-to-play game that, that does this thing. And I will say that this kind of thing is not even really that old if you look at, MMOs, right? Like it's been this way for a while. And specifically all of these business models, all the ways that you can pay for things and all the ways that these games keep you there are built. And this is what I said to you in our text messages on FOMO. I don't know. You mentioned your partner paying for things in Pokemon Go. And I don't know what she's doing in there, but I can think of a couple things you can spend money on. One, you can expand your capacity to be able to hold more Pokemon. And two, you can buy more Pokeballs when you run out.
I think that it's mostly the second category. Like, and that it's also worth saying that like that's something that I've spent money on before when I was playing a lot of Pokemon Go in the early phases, and then even for a few years after. It was the thing that I used as my like, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go walk around outside the office to like take a break and stretch my legs. And that was what I would do is buying more Pokeballs, or I think buying the like incubators to hatch eggs in the game.
Yeah.
Were things that I would do.
And for me, that's a pure example of FOMO, right? It's the fear of missing out on catching that Pokemon you really wanted. It's the fear of, missing out on like never hatching that egg. For me, when I spend money on the season pass, which is the only way that I've intentionally spent money on getting a new card in the game, because frankly, the season pass is very affordable. It's $10 and you get a lot out of it. It's probably the most like worth your money spending you can do in the game. For me, that's the FOMO of not getting to play with this fresh new thing. Yeah. Right? Not getting to play with it when it's fresh and playing it against people that don't have it. So I'm not getting those wins, which is shitty, but like is like real. And like, hell, we mentioned ranking going all the way up to infinite. Infinite status in Snap exists, and rankings in all other video games exists almost exclusively as a way to keep people playing and therefore spending. Yeah. One of the things I looked at today when I was taking these notes was the cosmetics shop, right? Which again is not always money based, but often is, rotates. So if you're in there and you don't have enough gold to get a cosmetic, but maybe you're like a few hundred gold away, right? And you see it, you're like, oh, I might never see that again. I might wait 4 months opening the app up at 10 p.m. And so today I'm going to spend the $5.
Yeah, this is a big thing in the fake economy of Animal Crossing that I'm very familiar with. The rotating shop merchandise. You need to have as many bells in your pocket as possible at any given time if you're looking for a specific item. And like it's also why like the Animal Crossing like the people who like farm items or like, different stuff, like why they have like the sales, right, where you know what I'm talking about, right? If you haven't played Animal Crossing or you don't know about the Animal Crossing subculture, basically there are people who gather these items through either straightforward or not straightforward means. And then you can like basically pay them $20 to go to their island, and then you can pick out a certain number of items or a certain set of items or a specific item depending on what it is you're looking for and the rarity of the item and all of this different stuff. And like, it's also worth saying that like a lot of players like give each other stuff for free, and gifting is a big part of the game. But this is also not real world money. There's no monetization within Animal Crossing beyond the game. It's like purchasing the game itself and any DLC.
I think it's so cool that there's like communities that have built up to like trade with each other. Okay, I'm just going to say it now. A thing that I love is the idea of just regular people trading and doing commerce with each other, right?
Yeah, it's like, fun.
Do I hate capitalism? 100%. Am I chill with commerce? Also 100%.
Sure.
And like this idea that you mentioned earlier, paying individual creators for things like presets in Lightroom or brushes in Procreate. That stuff is cool to me. I think there are businesses built on that stuff that I'm not a fan of, but I love to give a random person that I appreciate, right, some money for the work that they did. Right? Yeah. That's really cool to me. And so I love that there's like I remember like when Animal Crossing was brand new and, we were, all at home, like specifically the most recent Animal Crossing, like just the community that built up around like turnip selling, right?
Oh my God. The turnip economy.
I was big on just like meeting people online and then being like, oh yeah, my turnips are at this. And I would just be like, cool, hopping over there. And there would just be like a turnip selling party, right?
Yeah.
And occasionally they'd ask you to trade something, but I never did real world stuff. It was always like Nook Miles tickets,
Leave a tip of Nook Miles or bells.
Exactly.
10 Nook Miles or 10,000 bells or whatever,
If I turn on my New Horizons game, I'd have 11 million bells in my bank because of that that whole time.
Oh my God. See, this is why this is a really good example. This whole episode of like, you know what? Over the last few years, I'm like, I'm a gamer. I've become a gamer. I'm so good. I play games. I know things. And then it's like, hey, AC, what level are you on? 23. Oh, I'm on level 7,000.
I've also been playing the game for a full year.
I know. But like, I played like 400 plus something hours of Animal Crossing, and I certainly do not have 11 million bells.
I mean, I got 20 million in like 2 weeks. So it's just because I was really min-maxing.
But see, like, this is what I'm saying is like, I just am not, my brain does not work that way. It
Absolutely
doesn't.
Okay.
And I get stuck thinking about it in the same way that, like, I know that you're stuck thinking about it for these other reasons, right? Because your brain does work that way. And like, you do want to do these things, and you do want to like play these systems or like engage with these systems to have that like satisfaction of like winning and proving to yourself that like you are good at this thing. But like, for me, I'm just like, I don't understand it, and therefore I've let it go from my identity.
I wish that was me. I wish that could be me. So you know me. I have worked in tech my whole career.
Sorry, who are you?
Oh yeah, I've worked in tech my whole career. I've been really interested in design research, experience design, all that stuff for a long time. And people who do this kind of work, especially people who are like building software products, are going to be aware of the thing I'm about to mention, which is this book called Hooked by Nir Eyal. This was a big deal. It was brought up a lot around the conversation around loot boxes, actually. Okay. But Nir wrote this book called Hooked, and it lays out the most famous thing from that book is this thing called the Hook Canvas. And this book and this tool have been used in a subsection of the design world called behavioral design. The idea that you can theoretically design the way that the user of the thing you're making interacts with that thing, right? You can design it for the optimal outcomes for your needs and your business, right? I'm being very specific to not say the user's needs, because this is very much a thing where you are trying to, at best, guide a user through a process.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. You have an engagement ladder. You have a specific goal for them.
Yeah. I will say this is something I feel like every business does in different ways, but the way this is talked about is often, I think, can come off manipulative. I have seen it used for good in things like, how can we, and I'm making stuff up just because like I have worked in like the tech side of finance for a long time, and can't speak to the actual ways, but like, how can we, help people get more money and keep it in ways that help them? Right. That is a way that I have heard a random person like describe the thing they were working on. And like, we're looking at it from a behavioral design perspective. And what they often mean is this hook canvas, which starts with an internal trigger, which people, if you look at a version of the canvas, it often says, what does the user really want? Right. And then there's an external trigger, which is what gets the user to the product, right? The thing that I am making. And then there's action, which is like the simplest behavior that the user can take in anticipation of a reward, right? And then you would think reward would come next, but I want to call out specifically that it's variable reward.
Ooh.
Is the reward fulfilling? Does it leave the user wanting more?
We're just back to Survivor.
Yeah. Yes. The interesting thing about this is like this immediately calls to mind loot boxes, card packs, right? Like you are not always going to get what you want, but occasionally you do, right? And even if that's 50-50, it's not all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes you really want a reward that's like a good burger, and the reward that you get is milk and cookies.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they're poor colons. Oh, man. But the last step of this sort of like circular process is investment, which is the words they use is what is the bit of work done to increase the likelihood of returning, right?
Interesting.
And then investment goes back to trigger. Is that investment triggering the person returning, right? Think about how this might apply to energy and lives, right? The sort of like rebuilding lives. The trigger is I'm bored, right? Yeah. The action is I play the game and I either get new lives or I don't, which is a variable reward, right? And investment just happens because I've now played the game, I've invested myself. And then maybe the trigger the next time is, I ran out of lives. And the action might be like a combo of things. It might be I open the shop and see what bundles are available. Right. And maybe there's one and like I pay for it. The reward there is I get to play the game more. Right. And now I'm invested because I've played the game and I'm investing myself in it. It is a thing that people are intentionally using to build. Ben Brode, the director of Second Dinner, who you will often find me talking about because he also plays a lot of Magic the Gathering on YouTube channels that I enjoy, called this the economy loop when he was talking about designing Marvel Snap. And when I looked at their loop, I was like, you're just doing near y'all. Like that's what's happening here. I had a good day the other day when I texted you that Ben interacted with me on Threads, which was fun.
Yes, yeah. I had no context for that, but I was happy for you.
Yeah. I'd say this is most of what I have to say. I just want to say again that I really love this game. And in fact, it has inspired me to want to make games.
Oh.
Neurodivergence has led to that not necessarily taking shape, but we'll get there.
Sure.
And one of the things I frankly want to do is make a game inspired by this that doesn't do any of things, right? That is very intentionally respectful of people's attention and wallet and time, and also just does other things I'm interested in. I would love story, right? I love story in video games. I want, I've talked to a friend about like writing a thing with me. I was like, that's like my dream game, which people never make their dream game the first game they make,
right?
But like that's the thing in the future that I want to do. Whether it's multiplayer or single player, I actually don't care, right? I actually prefer single player games because then I can do things like make fucking crazy combos without having to worry about balancing the game for multiplayer.
Yeah. I think about like, I would love to play a game that's like has the story level involvement of like something like Hades that isn't a roguelike, because I mean, I've talked about how like Hades is the only roguelike I've ever played and it's one that I really like and enjoy, and I have a lot of fun playing it. But it's also, that's the only, it did not make me go search out more games that use that mechanic of play. I'm there for the story, right? Like, and I would love something like Marvel Snap tied to a story. Like, that sounds cool and interesting. And like, I think that like there's something to be said for like, we haven't really talked about Gwent, which is my other context for like some sort of like online game like this that uses, that's how we got to talking about Marvel Snap in the first place. Gwent within the Witcher games, right? Again, not monetized outside of the game, to my knowledge anyway.
Well, they have a Gwent that is it's like a separate game that is monetized.
Oh,
very
interesting. Okay. Well, then never mind. I take it all back.
No, but you're right. Playing Gwent,
it's a good example,
in that
right?
game is very similar. And there's a game called Gwent Thronebreaker, which is a story-based game where you play rounds of Gwent, right? Yeah. That is it's just paid once.
Yeah. That's where I was going, is like, I know that this game exists. I've never played it because I don't get Gwent. But I think, interestingly, I have felt as I've started to play, even just only being, at collection level 23, I do feel like I sort of understand the mechanics of Snap, right?
Yeah.
And that in turn, like Marvel Snap. And so that in turn has actually made me feel like maybe I can understand Gwent mechanics a little bit differently, right? And I don't know what it is about the difference of like left to right versus top to bottom, right?
Gwent is confusing.
But there's something, it does feel like there's something there, right? It's like a very similar structure of game too, right? Like, so there's more rules. It is more complex. There's more layers. There's more kind of actions and options that are more preset or less preset. But I think that like, there is also something, I think, to Marvel Snap's credit, right? That like even someone like me who's like, oh, this type of betting game isn't really for me. This type of card game isn't usually for me. Like, I'm interested and I want to keep playing. I like it. I'm with you. The art is really cool. The like frame break is cool, right? Like
frame break.
Yeah, like there are these features that do successfully, do that trigger an investment cycle for me. I am interested in continuing to play.
Yeah, there's so much that I love about this game. You mentioned the art. I love the upgrades. So for people who haven't played, you don't upgrade for like mechanical reasons. You upgrade purely for cosmetic reasons. So you use 2 free currencies, which is annoying, but you use 2 free currencies to upgrade cards on like 5 or 6 different levels. And as you do, the art changes. So the first one, the art breaks out of the frame, right? The second one, it becomes 3D.
Yeah.
The third one, I don't remember exactly the order, but like one of them's animated, you know, and then in the last one, you get like the infinity border, right? Which used to look really ugly. It was like this like kind of muted light purple, and people complained so much they made it way cooler. And
bullying works.
Yeah. And then when you get up to infinity, you can split a card and you get a new one that is the same art but has like foil treatment to it. Yeah. And then if you split like 5 or 6 times, you get a chance for it to be a gold foil or an inked, which is my favorite. I am like collecting inks. So I have like 3 different Jubilee inks just because I play her so much and love her so much. I have 2 different Doctor Doom inks, but it like inks make it look like a comic book. That's really all it does. Yeah. It makes the art look like a comic book. It's really neat.
What is Jubilee's power in the game?
She's a 4/1 that pulls another card to that location.
Interesting.
Yeah. I find it odd that we have gone this whole thing and haven't just like explained the basics of the game.
I mean, we can. We're not talking about the game, Matt. We're talking about the theoretical concepts behind the game, because we're not normal people. We're not like we're stuck on this game that we both like playing. We're stuck thinking about how this game that we both like playing impacts our world and our lives and how we think about things.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're our mental health and the drugs that I'm going to take later. Yeah. The prescribed drugs, to be very clear.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
I might take some unprescribed ones. Yeah, who knows?
Sure. I want to call out that, like I said in the beginning, I think one of the things that we can do just as like people, if we want things like this to get better, is to be willing to and actually pay for software.
Yeah.
I don't think all in-app purchases are bad. I don't think all microtransactions are bad. But if we want to see fewer junky free-to-play games in the world, right? One of the things that we can do is be willing to spend money on games. And I realize that comes with like a whole question of economics and like the ability of people to play games.
Sure.
But I think that if you have that available to you, putting your money towards those things is a way that we can improve. It's not going to move the needle on infinite growth bullshit, and C-suite and shareholder bullshit. But it's a thing that we can signal as, people playing these things.
Yeah, but I also think that it's worth saying, right? Like, I don't know, when we started playing games and we were buying console games, or my friends were buying console games when we were teenagers, right? Like, a part of the whole thing was like, you could save up to play a game, right? Like, you could save up the $65 or whatever, however much the game cost, to buy the game. And then you owned the physical disc, right? And like, we didn't even get into like the
ownership,
the console game, physical versus digital, licensing versus, you're owning your copy of the game outright. But if we're talking about like cost and accessibility, there is something that feels less accessible about a game where you are making multiple purchases that add up to thousands of dollars potentially over time to be able to play the game in the way that you enjoy, versus saving up to be able to buy a game that you like and you might play endlessly one time, right? And so I think that like, I'm with you, right? Being willing to pay for software. And like, I've been the person who's opened the game, like, the game store on my Nintendo Switch and been like, why does Mario need 65 more of my dollars? Like, come on.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, right? Like, I just choose to wait. And then I do usually eventually purchase those games that I want to play, but I might do it on a more delayed cycle because I'm not as willing to make that like big investment up front. And I know that that's different for different people, but I think it's like something interesting to consider.
Yeah, two things. Physical games can be bought used, and you should do that if that's something you want. And two, I also want to say that one of the reasons for the prominence of free-to-play games is because people don't have the money to spend on games. So I just want to call that out because I know that's probably feedback we'll hear. And that's, I get it. And like I said, it's not like I'm here talking about how much I love Marvel Snap and also critiquing it. So 100% on board with that idea.
I mean, I also don't spend money on games because I spent so much of my life not having money to spend on games.
Right.
When Farmville was popular and all my friends were playing Farmville and spending $5 on upgrades, I didn't have $5 to spend on upgrades. I had $5 to spend on a hot dog from the Dirty Curdy stand and a beer. Okay. Right. Like I don't know that I don't have like a context where spending money on this was something that like my impulse spending went to.
Yeah.
And so, I think that like I want people to be able to play games and I want free to play games to continue to exist. I know that ads are the trade-off, but I also think that like it also feels hard to say I want free to play games to continue to exist when that whole pay to win, pay to progress element is a part of it. Right. Yeah.
I do want to say too that one of the reasons I care so much is because that like, despite the games that we know being made by like capitalist interests and interested in milking us for every dollar, lots of individuals and smaller teams are out there that would love to just like sell things to you up front. Right. Yeah. They would love you to just like directly pay them for their work. And so I'm a big fan of playing games made by smaller teams, playing indie games, or even just like, games that like have a publisher, but that are made by 5 to 10 person teams that I want to support.
Is Monument a $5 game or a $10 game?
Monument Valley.
Do you remember? Monument Valley, is that what it's called?
Oh, I don't know.
That's one that I think of that I do think that I paid for that I loved and played again and again, Yeah. And is for me a good example of like a smaller game that became extremely popular because the art was good and the game itself was really good.
Yeah. They're much larger than they used to be, but still definitely one of the ones out there like making really incredible experiences that you can just like pay up front for. They had a game, I think they've done like 2 Apple Arcade games, which is itself a subscription that you're paying for and you're not really paying up front. So different business model, but making stuff that I respect, stuff that is not like super microtransaction heavy. And also like, I don't know, I talk a lot about games on the internet. So if you're looking for indie game recommendations, I got them. And then, I mean, you also said the thing, which is that like you didn't think to spend money on games. I'm always about people like spending according to your values. You're getting like finance Matt today, but it's like no one should be telling you like what is immoral or wrong to spend money on or like what you should be doing with your money.
100%.
If it's appealing to your values, that's a different thing, right? But like be spending money according to your own values. And that's why, for example, like there's certain things in my life I don't want, but one that I do is to spend a couple $100 on Marvel Snap over, a year. Yeah, right. Sure. And just say like that, I valued that. And that is a thing that I found important in some small way. And that is $200 that sure, I don't know, it could have gone to some other thing that somebody else expected of me, but that's not something that I needed or that I valued.
Yeah, I mean, I recently took a financial planning class because I have no. Listen, I think that I've said clearly enough that like I don't understand fake money in video games. I also do not understand real money in the real world. I do understand the consequences of not having money. Having grown up very poor. And, have been had points in my life where my rent was $350 and I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent, So I took this financial planning class, and like a lot of it was oriented around like, give your money a job, right? And like, I love that class a lot too, because to your point of like, spend the money on the things that make you happy, right? Like, okay, yes, make a budget and budget it out, but that $5 a month, cutting out the coffee, if the coffee is what makes you happy, we're all doing our very best to survive under capitalism. And if you can set up your budget so that maybe you don't have the coffee every day, but you can have it 2 times a week, then let's set up your budget so that it includes the money for Marvel Snap, so that it includes a book.
Or even if you do it more often than you think would be respected by other people. If you do want coffee twice a day, 6 days a week, and you've got the money for it, attribute your budget in a way that aligns with your values, which seems to be 12 coffees a week, and forget the guilt.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, like it was literally like, eat the donut every day, right? Like save the money to buy the donut every day, because if the donut is what makes you happy and keeps you alive, then like eat the fucking donut, right?
Exactly.
Because that's the thing.
Yeah.
And so like when we started talking about this, or when I talked with my partner about like, spending money on, phone games or whatever, for me, the fascination is not from a place of judgment. I hold no judgment for people who spend money on this. It is just fascination, because I don't think of it as a thing to do. Like I see that and I go, well, guess I'm going to set my phone down for 30 seconds and watch this ad. I don't think of doing the thing that would skip that step in the process. And like, I will say that we haven't really talked about it yet, but in the free-to-play games that use ads, right, rather than like more direct, like paying to progress or paying to win features, I think that there is also a part of it that is like, I grew up in a household where there was like a big cultural stigma against ads and like being persuaded by an ad to buy something, right? And like there's certainly an element of like financial insecurity here that like is important to name for my family. Was like a lot of it was like, no, you cannot have that. No, we cannot afford it. I don't care what the ad made you think, right? But and then like I grew up and I like got into these activist spaces, and then now I'm like reading and like being super judgmental of like the way that we're advertised medications on television, and like I work in organizing and marketing and think a lot about how we sell things to people and how we manipulate people. And like there is part of my personal identity that is really rooted around like, I can't be gotten by an ad. An ad can't get me. I'm smarter than the ads. The ad comes on my screen, I'm putting my phone down, and I am smarter than the ad. I'm smarter than what they're trying to sell me. And like the reality is that's fucking not true. Advertising does work on me. At TikTok, the way that they have figured out how to monetize TikTok Shop is both so fucking annoying, and it works so.
I still don't have TikTok Shop. Everyone has TikTok Shop. I don't have it. I don't know where.
Matt, have you updated your TikTok app?
Yes. I update all my apps all the time. I'm like an update everything person.
That's wild to me, because my feed is pretty much exclusively TikTok Shop ads.
Okay. At
this point, right? But the like there are ads that get me, right? Like it is actually just like I am the like the ad executive's nightmare of like I am a critical consumer.
Right.
And so like part of the whole thing is like I'm saying it's not, I don't hold it against people, but I would be embarrassed. Like I would experience shame and stigma if I spent money, not from anyone else, from myself. And we're back to, and now we're back to things that I have also talked about in therapy, right? I think my own worst critic, etc.
It is so funny to me that is actually most of the story here, I think, is that like, I feel like this actually wouldn't be that interesting if there weren't some version of that for everyone in the culture, right? Like the idea that people are meant to feel shame for spending money in these games is itself like tied to something like that, right? That is just like a general, like more general cultural phenomenon. One that I see a bunch is people talking about YouTube thumbnails, right? Like YouTube thumbnails are, call it clickbaity. We can talk about that word another time. They are meant to elicit an emotion, right? So that you click, right?
Yeah.
I also dislike a lot of YouTube thumbnails. But you know what? When I stopped putting my face in thumbnails for creative reasons, I stopped getting consistent views, right? And that was a decision I made and a trade-off that I knew was coming, right?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make slower content on purpose. But like, there's reasons people do these things, and like 1,000,000% you are not immune to these, no matter what you think. You might be more critical. Absolutely. You can probably engage in a conversation with yourself about these things in ways that people that don't think about them, right, don't have this conversation. But you're not immune. No one is. Like, this is
Absolutely
some of these things,
not.
the things that these systems leverage are sort of built into the human experience, right? And our larger cultural experience. I don't want to say that like things are necessarily down to like just humanity. But yeah, anyway, so that's Marvel Snap, and that is free to play games.
Yeah.
In general, my takeaway is that you should pay the individual people that you like for the things that they make. And
as always, our takeaway is pay artists.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? We don't have a Patreon, and that's probably not going to happen for a while, but you should go find somebody else that you like.
Yeah.
And give them some of your money. And
I mean, if you want to Venmo me $5, I'm not going to be bad about it.
Yeah. We do have to pay for recording software. But yeah, that's my general take is if this stuff upsets you or you want to feel better about, you want to use some, then pay artists, you know?
Yeah.
Go pay Scout to make you something at co-fi.com/humblegoat.
I really, really love how you get away with not ever having to say what you think the name of that website is.
I think it's Ko-Fi. Ko-fi. I think it's Ko-fi.
Okay. But I also want to say, like, if you feel shame or stigma for spending money on things that bring you joy while trying to survive under capitalism, or if you're spending money on games and you are worried that we have judged you here, I want to say I release you from that shame and stigma. You are good and worthy, and like you get to do things that bring you joy. And there is nothing embarrassing about like having fun, having something that brings you fun. And I mean, I think like it's worth spelling out too, there are risks like that poker tilt, right? Like I think, Matt, one of the things that I really love about this conversation is like I have really loved getting to hear your self-awareness of like knowing that you were like, oh, this feels bad for me. Actually, this is not bringing me joy. This is not making me feel good. This is not fun for me. And so I'm going to step away from that thing and think about what was it that made it not fun for me? And how do I get back to enjoying it in a way that is fun, right? And like, I think that's so grown up and so mature and so healthy. Wow, look at you go.
I have learned to feel anxiety in my body because of Marvel Snap in a way that I never could before.
Wow.
And like that is shout out to therapy to begin with. I'm not going to blame Marvel Snap for that one. I in fact was more anxious for a time because of Marvel Snap. But that's a me thing. I don't think this game is like intentionally going to make everyone anxious. That's just me not being able to deal with not being the best at things. And that's a personal flaw. So
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's one many of us struggle with. So,
well, do you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay. Well, we didn't mention Genshin Impact. I'll say Genshin Impact is another free-to-play game, and they play on a different thing called Gachapon, which is like those like insert coin machines, and you get like one of the random toys.
Yeah.
Basically, that mechanic exists in a bunch of games. They're called gacha games now, and that's what Genshin Impact is.
Okay. Genshin Impact is a free-to-play phone game?
Yep. It's a free-to-play phone and like console game and PC game. It's on everything.
Fascinating.
I'm probably not going to include that in the show, but
I learn so much every day. It's so funny. The singer that I was thinking of was I just can't stop thinking about the Oratrice Mecanique Cardinale Cardinale, but
maybe I will put it in this show.
You know what? It's fine.
Oh my God.
Fine. No, I don't have anything to add, Matt. I think other than I do just like really genuinely want to like say that my fascination here is that it's not something that I think of, not that I think that it's bad or something that people should or shouldn't do. You know, I think like in the grand scheme of things, this is so trivial, you know, and that isn't intended that shouldn't trivialize the enjoyment that we get out of it. Right. You know, I don't know.
Well, hey, if you want to hear me say more things about Marvel Snap, you can get them at Horton.live. That's where you'll find my threads and my YouTube channel and a bunch of other things. Hey, AC, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet at my own website, which I do remember the name of today. It's acfacci.com. That's acfacci.com.
That is correct. You can always find the show at can'tletitgo.gay and on Instagram,
great website,
threads, and TikTok at can'tletitgo.gay. You can find The Worst Garbage, who we thank so much for having us on, at theworstgarbage.online. We're in the Can't Let It Go channel there. It's been real active and real happy with the conversations in that channel. And honestly, the TWG Discord is one of my favorite places on the internet. Again, we'll shout out Scout for making our artwork. That's ko-fi.com/humblegoat. And my friend Ethan at Pragmatism on Twitter for our music. I think I said this last recording, but he just released an album under the name Ethan called Primer. It's real good, and I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah.
Next time, I think it's a big one.
It's a big one. It's finally here.
We're going to do Barbie.
Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
I am excited to watch this movie again and get to talk about it with you.
Yeah, maybe we should make a plan to like simul watch it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
But maybe then we would spoil it, the episode, in text messages for each other. I don't know.
A thing that AC and I have had conversations about recently is texting each other for content.
No, not me texting my friends for content.
So maybe we will avoid that so that we're not texting each other for content.
Hey, we're going to make an episode about the Barbie movie. What have you guys been texting about in the last 2 weeks? The Barbie movie.
Oh, man. It's so good. It's so good.
I can't wait. I'm excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah. Well, we will talk to y'all next time.
Bye.
TWG, the worst garbage. .online.
According to the judgment of the Oratrice Mecanique d'Analyse Cardinale, we now turn to the Oratrice Mecanique d'Analyse Cardinale. The judgment of the Oratrice Mecanique d'Analyse Cardinale.